Hi. We are lucky, we are blessed. Life is a gift, and I'm so glad to be here. I'm grateful for all of it. I'm moving very slowly today, thinking very slowly. I feel that I am in soft focus with my eyes, with my awareness. And it feels like things are moving around in here, restructuring, rewiring in a positive way. I have, for the last week, every other day, done a microdose of psilocybin just before bed for the sake of neurogenesis. Psilocybin has been a very helpful plant medicine for me in the healing of my trauma, in the healing of my brain when I had an acquired brain injury. So it's not a medicine that I use all of the time, but when it calls to me, I listen to my intuition, and I know that it's a positive thing for me. It has been, and it's not something I just would recommend to anybody because everyone's different. But for me, it's been a helpful tool on my journey, this journey of life, this time around. And last night I did a larger dose, closer to a gram, which is still a small dose, but it's not a microdose. It's a noticeable amount. It's like when you ingest a gram of psilocybin mushrooms, your perception is going to be noticeably altered. And it was. And larger doses like that for me are usually pretty challenging in that it usually creates a sort of anxiety within me. I find it to be overall a positive experience, even though anxiety is uncomfortable while you're in the thick of it. The next day, you have the contrast. You know, you're no longer in that state, and you can appreciate that. You know, and having made your way through that, it gives you a feeling and a sense of, well, I'm resilient. I can handle challenging things, you know. So that's the positive side of, you know, doing something challenging and being uncomfortable. And what I was experiencing anxiety over last night was I was being bombarded with things from my past. Ways in which I had handled myself less than ideally in challenging circumstances, in my relationships to other people. Namely, more specifically, like being just reactive, and in my reactivity, being abusive. A lot of the abuse that's happening amongst people is reactive abuse. It's you're abused, and then you pass on the abuse because you react to that abuse. And And a lot of times people use that as an excuse not to take responsibility for their abusive actions, because they're just saying like, well, I was a victim and I can't be held responsible for how I responded to my abuse and or reacted. And well, if you're acting unconsciously, there is some truth to that if you're unaware. But once you become aware, you have a responsibility to do better. And so, as you become more aware and you're able to look back at your life and see where you stumbled in the past and how you acted out of line unconsciously, it can be embarrassing. You can feel shame, and a lot of people do carry shame and they don't work through it, and it holds them back. And so I was experiencing like shades of that and residue of that, and like it was very amplified. And it was like my shadow, the residue of any of that I have left was like really rising up for me to deal with. That's the positive thing. It's like, if you're not aware of it, you can't deal with it. Because on a daily basis, I feel pretty good and I feel pretty clear, but there are still things within me that need to be alchemized and transmuted. And so this is a medicine, psilocybin, that allows me to deal with these things bit by bit as I feel that I am capable of doing that. And so some of what was coming up specifically was like some ways that I had interacted with some of my coworkers in the past when I had dealt with a boss who was being sexually inappropriate with me, and I lost a lot of relationships and friendships and a sense of community that I had built around that workplace when I left because of what was happening with my boss. I also left behind and lost a lot of the people that worked there or went there as customers, and that was very hard for me. And I later had some interactions with some of these people where I feel like I wish I could have handled myself with more grace, but I was speaking my truth, but I wasn't able to speak my truth with calmness and clarity, and so it didn't really help my case much. And I was experiencing all of that last night of like, God, I just wish I could have been cooler, but I did the best that I could do at the time, given my level of development and understanding and consciousness. And we can't go back and change the past. So I have to have grace, give myself grace, and give myself compassion and forgiveness. So I was dealing with all that last night, right? But then life is so magical and interesting. How the mind interacts with the world out here and co-creates and manifests our reality. This is a waking dream, I believe. So, as I said, I'm moving slow this morning, and so I got up a little later than normally. I took my time, went to sauna. I didn't make it to my cafe till about whatever time it is now. Like, I don't know. I was there like 30 minutes ago. So around lunchtime. I wasn't there. I usually get there at like 7 a.m. So I was running like 5 hours behind schedule today. But before I went to the cafe, I was at the sauna, and someone in the sauna randomly brought up the place that I used to work at, which I was just talking about, where I had the boss, that there was sexual inappropriate behavior, sexual harassment. This is in another town nearby. I don't go there anymore. I left all of that circle of people in that world behind. So I was dealing with all these thoughts around it last night when I was working with the medicine. And then it popped up in the sauna this morning. This guy was saying he's going to go to the beach, and before he's going to go to the beach, he's going to go to this place I used to work. And I always, not unprovoked, not, out of context, but I always let people know if that place is brought up in any capacity. I let people know my experience, not in detail, but just let them know that the person who runs that place is a predator. And, I just say, hey, just so you know, this man preys on young women. So that's who you're supporting when you spend your money there. And I don't pressure people not to go there or to make any sort of decision. To me, it's just like, if you know a well is poisoned and you see someone about to go drink out of it, don't you have a moral obligation to inform that person that they're about to drink from a poisoned well? That's how I feel in community. We're supposed to look out for each other. That's a poisoned well as far as I'm concerned. And so I let people know that. So I told this guy that. I said, as a man, you probably would like to know when there are male predators about, and you probably, because this is a good guy, I said, you probably don't want to support that guy, just letting you know. Okay. There was a woman in the sauna sitting next to him, and she was like, well, I like that place, and so I'm going to support the product and not him, which I was like, cool, I thought that was a weird thing to say, but yeah, no pressure. I said, it's a nice place, and the people who work there are nice, and the people that go there are nice, so, But her remark was a bit, I felt, defensive, or kind of like coming from a place of like, where you're not going to tell me where to go or what to do, which I wasn't trying to do that, but that was the feeling. And then I leave there and I go to my new cafe that I hang out with. This place that I used to work was a cafe. I was a barista. And so I go to my new cafe and I get my coffee and I turn around and this guy's like, hey, like really happy to see me. Like, haven't seen him in probably 2.5 years now. I haven't seen him since I left that cafe that I used to work at. He was a customer there. He was a regular there. He would set up his computer and do his work from the cafe every day. And we always had great conversations. He was part of my community that I lost when I lost that job. And so he was like, where have you been? Like, he didn't know what happened. So I told him, because he was curious about like, where have you been? And I said, well, I had to leave because, so-and-so who runs the place was being inappropriate with me, and it really it messed with my head, and I left, and he was like taken aback. But then I reminded him, I said, like, you were there one day when he said something inappropriate to me, and you actually said to him, that's sexual harassment. This guy, he said this to my boss. And so he had actually witnessed like inappropriate speech and called it out. So I was surprised that he was surprised, that he was acting surprised. And he's just like, oh, and he's like, well, this place is closer for me, so like, I come here sometimes now, but I still go there. And I was like, yeah, well, I don't support that place anymore. And I make sure to tell everybody, who and what they're supporting when they spend their money there. And he starts like rambling like off why he thinks that couldn't be true about him. Like, well, I know so and so works there and she is a strong personality, and I don't think that she would let him get away with that. So, like, why would she still be working there? Like, putting me on the defense almost, of like basically saying, yeah, what you're saying can't be true because obviously it's not happening to this other girl that works there because she would leave. But I'm telling you, I left. You know, and so this is like some of what I was dealing with last night, because I had come up against this sort of defensiveness from other people in the community who clearly really liked the place and enjoyed it and didn't want to believe this about the owner because they didn't want to feel guilt or they didn't want to be complicit in supporting something like that by continuing to go there. So they needed to convince themselves that I was a liar or that I was in the wrong. That's what it felt like. And that did happen. And so I just told him, I was like, hey man, like, you don't need to believe me. I'm not here to convince you. I know what happened. I was there. That's the truth. So do what you want with it. And then I walked away. And like, I was proud of myself because I didn't get upset. When this first wave of people doing this to me, when that first happened a couple of years ago, which is what I was perseverating on last night, I was very angry at these people, and I kind of acted out like in this reactive, abusive sort of way, which then made me look kind of crazy, which, kind of maybe justified their belief that I had been lying or not telling the truth, because they're like, oh, this girl's wacko. Really, I was just super frustrated and angry about the fact that I had continually over and over and over again in my life experienced this sort of thing where men in positions of power misused and leveraged that power against me as a woman and acted abusively towards me in a sexual way. I finally just broke, and one of the side effects of breaking was I just went off on people left and right who I felt were accusing me of being a liar or crazy, because I had experienced that throughout my entire childhood by my family. The people who were supposed to support me and love me, they were turning a blind eye. They were being complicit in it because they didn't want to deal with it, because they didn't want their world to be rocked. And that's what was going on in this community of people that hung out at this really cool cafe where everyone wanted to be seen, and they have great coffee and a great atmosphere. And like, people don't want to believe something like this about that place because it's going to ruin it for them. So then the messenger gets shot, right? But the fact that this all came up today, after me spending all night dealing with feelings of the past, from the past surrounding this issue, like, it bled out and was projected out into the real world so that I could encounter it again and deal with it differently this time. And I did. I kept my cool. I spoke the truth. It doesn't matter to me what you do with it. That's your responsibility. That's up to you as a person who has free will. Do as you will, and I don't care what you think about me, because I'm okay with me. So that's great. I feel also like, because this is coming up for me right now, it's an indication to me that I'm probably breaking through into a new chapter of my life. Because it's like I feel that I'm shaking off the last little bits of things that might have been holding my wings down, because I feel what happened was that I was transformed. I went into this cocoon and had this alchemical spiritual experience of my former self breaking down, and then I turned into something new. I am something new. I even have a new name. I have a new way of seeing the world. I have wings now. But these wings, because I just recently came out of the cocoon, they were wet. You know? They still had the imaginal cell goo on them. And I feel like maybe they're drying out and I'm ready to take flight. I feel like what just happened is an indication that that's what's going on. That's what I'm telling myself. We're going with that, and so it is. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I think I'm done with this round of medicine for, the foreseeable future until I'm ready to maybe deal with some other things that might be, in the attic that I'm not really aware of right now. So, yeah. Wow. And then I looked in the little free library at that same cafe as I was leaving after I told the guy, like, you don't have to believe me, it's okay. I'm fine with that. I opened up the little free library and there was a book by Florence something. Anyways, it's all about how we, co-create our reality with our thoughts. And also about Jesus Christ. It's not like The Secret of like, oh, let me just create my reality and my selfish desires because I can. It's not that angle on it. It's the angle is get right with God, purify yourself, become a vessel, and let the will of God flow through you with zero resistance and fighting. That's the angle at which she comes through, educating people about the fact that we are instruments, vessels, conduits for the light of God to project out into the world and create. So, I'm gonna read that book today, and I'm gonna sit in the sun and let my brain finish cooking. I don't know if I should have used that word. Percolating. Rewiring. Yeah. So very thankful, very grateful. You are blessed. You are a gift. Life is a gift. You are a child of God, made by an all-loving, all-knowing, merciful, powerful creator. And that can live inside of you and flow through you if you will allow it, if you will just get out of your own way. Oh, wow. Okay. Have a good day, guys.